James episode, we have a 30-minute special for you today. And on today's show, we have a man named Lou Pavone. And he was a construction worker in New York City for many years. And the company that he was working for was called in to help clean up the damage after 9/11. So we are very happy to have Lou on the show today. And he's got a very, very emotional story on what it was like to clean up the damage after the terrorist attack on 9/11. So Lou, thank you very much for being on the show today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well, thank you.
So how long did you live in New York City?
I lived all my life in New York City. I was born and raised. I lived in Uptown Manhattan, Washington Heights.
And you obviously you worked in New York for a long time.
Yeah, because a construction worker, I worked in New York, local 731, and on that particular day of 9/11, when the planes hit, I was driving home from my construction job because we work at night, road repair, and of course we finish early in the morning. And I was driving home, and I live in Brooklyn, and I drove underneath, I drove Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, but I happened to pass the World Trade Center just before it happened, you know, and as soon as I got home, my mother said to look on the TV, and I saw that the first plane had hit. I lived in Bay Ridge, and Bay Ridge at the time had a heavy population of Middle Easterners. What I found unusual was that once the plane hit, I went outside because we wanted to see what's going on. But from my window in Brooklyn where I live, you could see straight across to the harbor, so you could see the smoke.
Yep.
But what I noticed was when I went out, how all the stores were shut. It struck me as unusual, you know. But you couldn't go anywhere. There was no movement at all. Everything shut down. So I imagine that in Manhattan, it was even worse. You know, it was chaotic, as we know now from all the, you know, history would show us that. Yeah, that's where I was. And a friend of mine, Felix Perez, he called me up and he told me that we have to go down and get into the World Trade Center to work. I told him there's no way we're going to get there. And he said that he had a way because he got a relative that's a fireman. And we went in through Staten Island. And that was the 12th, that night, the 12th to go into the 13th. And we drove the ferry into Manhattan because they wouldn't let us go any other way. And when we get there, it was bucket brigades. We were on the rubble with the bucket brigades on Liberty and West Street. I remember very vividly. And then I remember I stayed there. I didn't go home. I stayed there and I slept in the lobby of 2 financial center, right there again, Western Liberty. And it just so happens that fate had dictated that West Street and Liberty Street would be my home for about the next 3-4 months. I could tell you many stories about what went on and the guys there. You know, I say this, I don't view the World Trade Center through the same eyes as if somebody had lost a loved one there. I feel in my heart, it's internalized, I can feel for all of them because I became to feel like every life lost in the World Trade Center was mine. There was a connection. And so we worked at the World Trade Center, and it was hollowed ground, and we respected it. I remember specifically John Vigiano. He lost 2 sons there. One was a fireman, and one was a police officer. When I heard this, I was really disturbed, and I had a cross cut out of the iron. The iron workers were cutting crosses out. I kept the cross in my car, praying for him, you know. And it just so happens that John Vigiano was always a couple of 100 feet from me, but I didn't know it until one day somebody came to pick him up, and they said, it was John Vigiano. And I went to him, and I said to him that I was offering my condolences, and I handed him the cross, and I told him I pray for him every day. And you know, this is what struck me as unusual. I started crying then. I just broke down and cried. This man who had lost 2 sons at the World Trade Center, he took me in his arms and he held me like a father would hold his son, and he said that it's going to be all right. It left me like I couldn't believe it. Somebody in such a emotional state of losing your 2 sons tell a perfect stranger it's going to be all right. You know, he would come and see me every day after that day. Always with a smile. How you doing? Always. And I could never understand, but it shows what a great human being he is. Mm-hmm. That is really strange, and it's a true story. Now it takes us, we're into the job now. We're down at the foundation. I'm working at in the rubble, and they're loading the ukes, which are big yellow trucks, right? And I see in the rubble a bag, but the bag looked whole. I took the bag, I gave it to one of the firemen, who dumped it on top of the light towers, these light generators that they had to, because it's a 24/7 job. But I didn't see what fell out of the bag. He put it all back in the bag and left the bag there. That day, that bag kept getting my attention. I kept looking. I went home that night. I come back the next day, and the bag was in the same place. And that struck me as unusual because there's so much activity, I thought the bag might get dumped away. At the end of that day, I dumped the bag, and I saw that inside the bag was an address book, a little photo album. When I looked at it, it was scenes of the nativity, but little children, like a Christmas play, you know. And then the Bible that fell out of this bag. This Bible was nothing wrong with it. It was intact, and the pictures were intact. And that struck me as unusual because I'm at the bottom of the rubble, and that's where I found the bag, at the bottom of the rubble. So I took the Bible in my pocket. I stuck it in my pocket, and I took the address book and the pictures. And I felt compelled that I had to get this back to whoever it belonged to. At the end of the day, I asked some of the guys I work with if they thought I should get it back, you know, and they said, no, you don't know, it might be dead, you open up a can of worms. And I said, okay. I left it alone till I went home that night, but I said to myself, you know, I got to get it back. I don't know if this person's alive or dead, but I got to try. Because I said, this is a person of strong faith. I had a little address book, and I called the first number of the book, and the person answered. I said, is such and such a person still alive? Did they get out to go to? Oh, God, oh, yes, oh. The person, oh, my God, oh, yes, a minute. I said, I'm a construction worker. I have something that belongs to her. Now, I never said what I had. I didn't want him to know. And I said, can you please have him call me? About 10 minutes later, I received a phone call from the lady's husband. I said to him that I have something that belongs to your wife. I'd like to give it back to her. He didn't ask me what it was. They had no clue. It just so happens that he lived in Brooklyn about 10 blocks from where I lived. I said, damn. So I drove to his house, and when I went in, he was a big man. Big hand shook my hand and just led me into the apartment. And as I'm walking into the apartment, she is sitting on the couch, and they got the two little kids sitting on the couch on the left, and they got the chair set up. And I see my peripheral vision, the Jehovah's Witness, because they have the magazines, and I said they're setting up for prayer. Now, Jehovah's Witness, I respect all religions, and I said this family is a God-fearing religious family. You know, they have faith. So I'm in the living room, and I said to the lady, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but I said to her, I have something that belongs to you, and I pulled out the Bible, and I handed it to her. She could not speak. She was like, if she had seen the dead rise, or a ghost, or something that wasn't supposed to get back to her. She took it and could not talk. When I finally got her to speak, I said to her, where were you when this happened? She was working the concierge desk in the lobby, and when the plane hit, it blew out the elevator doors. A ball of flame it knocked her down. It burned some of the people that was with her. But what saved her was that she was behind the marble desk. It said it knocked her out of her shoes, that she got up and she ran out. Now, that was the lobby. The lobby is at the bottom of 110th story. Boom! That's where I found this bag and this Bible. So I gave the Bible back to her, and she told me she was in the lobby. So I said good night, and I walked out. And so when I left, I felt I really did the right thing, giving the Bible back. But more profound than that was the fact that I found it at the World Trade Center. It was on the first floor, which was now the bottom of the rubble, and that I had the mindset, the consciousness of returning this to a person that believed and that was there. So not only was the miracle that she got out, but was the miracle of the Bible getting back to her, because that is unheard of. You know, what is the possible relationship, the connection we make? So I got it back. I left there. I remember I sat in my car inside, and I wept, doing the right thing to, you know, it felt very human to me, you know, because while I was there, I always questioned myself, what am I doing here? Why am I here? You know, I was there because I ended up taking over 3,000 pictures. And I know my reason for being there now was to make people smile, because while I was there, I used to do some things to make the guys smile on the job, but that's a whole nother story. But basically, I'll leave you with that one story about the miracle, because I see it as a miracle to join that lady with the Bible, you know. Again, it was a profound moment. I got it done, and I move on now. Now we got other things in the works that relate to this 9/11 event. I've taken, like I said, over 3,000 pictures since I was there, many of them one of a kind, and we're getting ready to do a photo tour we're heading towards.
So now, Lou, you are an artist as well.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an artist. Yeah, I said, yeah, that's my newfound career, art, because
Okay.
I came to FMCC to bring my two sons here because they have scholarships because of the World Trade Center. They could go to any school in New York State. Then we chose FM. They said to me, I don't know what I'm going to do with my time, and they suggested that I too go back to school, which I did, and I met Joel Chapin from the art department. And when I first started school here, I was like, wound up with wanting to do photo tours, just wanted to do something. And I told my story to Joel Chapin, and he has taken me under his wing, so to speak, and has nurtured this idea of the photo tour and how to put it together. And then I came up with the idea of trying to create a sculpture. I found out that in order to get a piece of the steel from the World Trade Center to get in touch with the Port Authority, but I also needed a letter from the school.
Yep.
That's where Dusty came in, and he's the president of the school, and he was dynamite. But he was even dynamite beforehand because I had told him about the photo tour. So he was right behind us in this, making this sculpture. So the final consensus now is that this sculpture is going to be a permanent installation here on campus. It's hands-on, and I'm very excited about it. And we should have the piece here on campus within the next 4 weeks. I don't know what the piece is going to be exactly like. Yep. But we're very flexible as far as the design is concerned, and it's going to be very exciting. And again, I have Dusty to thank for backing me up with the Port Authority, and Joel Chapin for mentoring me as I'm going along. I've made some progress in the last. I've made more progress in the last 2 years than I have in the prior years, about 8 or 9 years beforehand, because that's how long I've been working on this project. Yeah. It took a long time. Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate you being on the show today, and thank you for sharing your emotional story. I got chills listening to it.
Well, I would like to, sometime in the future, share the experience with you of building the monument, but also having where I show you some of the pictures that I've taken, because nothing says it like a photo, and I could tell you exactly what is going on in the photo, whereas you see many pictures of the aftermath, but you don't know what you're looking at, Mm-hmm. I could get that more pinpointed for you, but I tell you, it's an event that has changed me as an individual, but the World Trade Center was very personal to us because it's happened on the ground. But throughout history, such atrocities have been committed against human beings. It was before the World Trade Center, and it is after the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. Still continues. So that for me, I was at least involved in the World Trade Center, know what that's about, know the feelings but I feel it's important that as one individual, I gotta stand up and say that this is not the way to live. This is not the way to treat each other. There's gotta be a better way, and I'm blessed that I have that opportunity to be able to do that, because if I could change the thinking of at least one person, if I could change one person's thinking, I've succeeded. My job is done. My life has become 9/11, but with a reason, mm-hmm. Tell a story. So here we are today. We live in the greatest country, have the best opportunities, and we sometimes take it for granted, shame to say, but, yep. Hopefully with the sculpture, some folks will learn while participating in it, not to take it for granted, you know, that it's special.
And hopefully we can film some of the process of you building it, and maybe we can have you back on the show after the sculpture is complete.
Thank you. I enjoyed coming back, and I'm sure you're more than welcome to follow the progress. And we're going to see, it's going to happen. It's happening now, so I'm really excited about it.
It's amazing that we were actually going to have a piece of that tower here on our campus. I think that's amazing.
Yes, that is amazing. We will have the piece of the World Trade Center, and also there's a monument outside in front of the school for, I think it's a Vietnam Veterans Memorial, that I'm going to request, and it has been requested, that it's moved from where it is and put in a more prominent area where it can be seen. And I like to see that happen. Yeah. So,
just a quick question. How long did it take to actually clean up Ground Zero? Like, I can't imagine how long it took to clean up that mess.
It was, in relative time, speaking of normal construction jobs, it was fast. I would have to say, let's see, with September, October, November, December, by the sixth month, it was 90% done. 90% done. So I would say 6-7 months, it was cleaned out. It was a phenomenal job, you know. The coordination that it took, and the lack of experience of taking down such an enormous building. They ran across a lot of problems, but they were solved, and now today, look at what we have there today in its place, you know.
Yep. I got to go to the 9/11 museum over our December break, and it's amazing the feeling that you get. It's so quiet.
Yeah. I went there too, and it took me about 12 years, 10, 11, 12 years, something like that, to bring myself down there. And when I was down in the basement, I looked at the wall, and I recall standing in the same spot before the museum was there, and it was strange, man. It was really strange, you know. It's hard because I want to say one thing to make it perfectly clear. You know, the construction workers down there, we were not really recognized while all this was going on. You know, the recognition would go to the firemen, and the police officers, and rightly so, you know. But I want the construction workers always to be remembered that we stood side by side with the firemen and policemen. Yeah, they're the first responders, but the next ones to come up to the line were the construction workers. And we stayed there to the end, and we're still there now. We build America, and nothing would have happened down at the World Trade Center if it wasn't for the construction workers. That I stand by.
Well, Lou, thank you very much for being on the show today. We appreciate it. We'll be right. And thank you very much for joining us today for our special half-hour episode. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of speechless. It was an amazing story, and we are very honored that we got to hear that. Before we go, I'd just like to take a second to honor all those who lost their lives that day, who have lost their loved ones, received injuries, and we need to remember all the sacrifices that the firefighters made, the EMTs, police officers, volunteers, and even the construction workers. So I think we need to just take a moment and have a moment of silence. Okay, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope that you tune in with us next week.